What's up, Earthlings? This is Philip Strom here.
And I'm Jabari Hillard, his co-host. And you're here with our first episode of On the Fly podcast.
Yeah, so today we're getting into week 3 of the NFL season. Basically, we're going to have 3 segments today. The first segment is our AFC playoff predictions. We're going to go down by seeding. Then we're going to get into what the fuck did Eric say? We'll get into how that segment works later. And then third, we're going to have the good, the bad, and the Dolphins. So this week we're going to focus on the AFC playoff predictions. We didn't want to get into the NFCs this week as well. We're going to get to that next week just because the NFC is a lot more competitive.
Yeah, there's a lot more testosterone flowing around over there, would you say?
Yeah, it's hard to predict who's going to win it over in the NFC. So we'll dive into that next week. Let's dive right into it. I think the New England Patriots are going to be my number 1 seed. They have the best secondary in the league, led by Devin and Jason McCourty, especially with Stephon Gilmore. He's a top 3 corner in the league. Their only weak spots are probably going to be at the defensive line. They lost Trey Flowers and Malcolm Brown. They also lost David Andrews to IR on the offensive line. And Isaiah Wynn and Marcus Cannon are still working on getting back. My number 2 seed is going to be the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes looks unstoppable, to be honest. He looks like one of the best quarterbacks I've ever seen. And it burns me to say it because I'm a Chargers fan. We haven't won the division in a while. Their defense looks a lot better with Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu. Sammy Watkins finally looks healthy, which is, that. And then we have Andy Reid at head coach. He's definitely the second best head coach in the league, and it's not even close. They're going to be great on offense all year, and their defense might be a little sluggish at times. They're going to lose a couple games, but they're going to be second seed, and it's probably not going to be too close as well. And then my 3rd seed coming out of the AFC North is the Baltimore Ravens. They have a solid defense, even though they lost a lot of guys, including C.J. Mosley off the defense. But he got about a $20 million contract a year at middle linebacker. They couldn't afford that. They got Earl Thomas, and he looks great. He looks like a prime Earl Thomas. Lamar Jackson can throw. He's looking actually as good as Patrick Mahomes. Their stats are on par with each other. So that's scary. And then we also have Antonio Brown's cousin, Marquise Hollywood Brown, and he had a great game week 1. Slowed down a little week 2, but he could be a breakout receiver this year. They also have a top 10 offensive line with Mark Andrews at tight end as well. He's had 220 yards and 2 touchdowns through 2 weeks, so he's looking great. They look like they're going to have a really solid offense and a solid defense the whole year. So I think they have that 3rd seed locked up, especially because Big Ben got hurt. There's no one really to challenge them. The Browns don't really...
aren't really a factor.
Yeah, the Bengals don't look like a factor, especially with A.J. Green still out. Their defense doesn't look that great. And the Cleveland Browns are the Cleveland Browns. I don't think they have a really tough schedule coming up as well. So I don't think they're going to be able to make it or win enough games to even come close. My 4th seed is going to be the Houston Texans. It looks like they really bet their future away by trading those 2 first-round picks for Laramie Tunsil. But their weakest point on their team is the offensive line, and without him, it would have looked really grim. But they've looked a lot better, especially in the run game. They got Carlos Hyde from the Chiefs, and he got 20 carries last week. He looks like he's going to be a focal point of that offense. He's averaging 5.7 yards a carry. So Carlos Hyde might be back. And then we got J.J. Watt and Whitney Merciless off the defense. I know they lost Jadeveon Clowney, but those are still 2 really solid pass rushers.
Jadeveon Clowney, would you say he's the only reason why they're not in top 3?
I wouldn't say that. I'd say their secondary kind of puts them back there. Their best safety is Jaleel Adai, and the best thing he does is hit people. So yeah, I wouldn't put him up there. It's kind of close. The Ravens could lose. The Ravens are one of those teams that lose a couple games that you think they're going to win. You never know. So, but they look really solid first couple weeks, so I'm going to stick with the Ravens at 3. Then we got the Texans at 4, of course. Now, let me get to the wild card teams. My 5th seed is going to be the look at me doing it, San Diego Chargers. Los Angeles Chargers. The LA Chargers are a really talented team. They just have a lot of injuries. Phillip Rivers, I think he's going to be able to carry him and win a lot of games without these star players. But I think past week 10, once we get, players like Gordon back, players like Denzel Perriman, Hunter Henry, Russell Okung, he's one of the best left tackles in the league. He's not playing. Once we get our star players back, this is going to be a really solid team. And I think like
Explain
last
the
year,
Melvin Gordon situation. You know what happened with
so
Melvin Gordon?
so basically with Melvin Gordon, he wanted a little too much money. Obviously, the Chargers aren't going to give it to him. Well, during the season, they suspended contract talks till the end of the season, and they're planning on just paying Gordon if he decides to play. And Gordon, obviously, you have to play by week 10, according to NFL rules, for it to count against your year on your contract. So he said he's going to be back probably by week 6 to 8. That's not confirmed though. He came out and said something along the lines of "Don't speak for me" or something on Instagram. But I know he'll be back. He said he's going to be back, but he didn't say when. But we estimate it's going to be about weeks 8 through 10. So that should be a really good boost for the team. Russell Okung, he's on IR. He's going to be back. They'll be able to relook at him in about 6 to 8 weeks, or about 6 weeks now. He had a lung problem. He had I think it was a chest blockage or something in the lung. So hopefully we get him back. Derwin James should be back by the end of the season, probably December. But, we got a Hall of Fame quarterback. We got a good running game, and we got the best pass rushers in the league. True. So if they can step up, everybody can step up. I think we have a good enough team to survive long enough to get these players back. My sixth and final seed is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. The reason I put them in there is because they have a top 5 offensive line in the league still, and Marlon Mack looks like a baller. And they also have T.Y. Hilton still there. Jacoby Brissett, it's a drop-off from Andrew Luck, don't get me wrong, but he's still a solid starter in the league. And on defense, they still have Justin Houston, Jabal Sheard, and Malik Hooker running around there, and Darius Leonard. He won, Defensive Rookie of the Year. So they have a solid team. And the Chargers, we actually played them week 1, and we had to go to overtime to beat them. So they have a lot of fight in them, and they have a pretty decent offense. Marlon Mack looks like the real deal. He looks like a really good running back, and I think they're going to run behind him the whole season and give him 20-plus carries a game if he can hold on.
Pro Bowler, you think?
Definitely a Pro Bowler. Week 2, he slowed down a little bit, but we'll see what happens. It's still only the second week out of 16, so we'll give him a few more weeks and see where they're at. But definitely I think he can be, especially with that offensive line. But the Colts team in general, just watch them a couple games this year, and you can tell they're not a Super Bowl contender, but they're definitely playoff contending as a team. And you never know, maybe you'll see Andrew Luck pop back in there if they make playoffs. So those are my predictions based off just the first couple of weeks of the season, just observing every team. I've seen basically every game. Now I'm going to hand it off over to Jabari. He's going to tell you his 6 seeds. I think we're going to agree on the first 4, and then we'll vary probably on the wild card teams. We'll see how it goes. What do you think, Jabari?
So with the Patriots, I agree with first seed because the addition to Antonio Brown, and the weakest part to the Patriots, I think, is their offensive line. But they could cover up their deficiencies with Josh Gordon, and Brady has one of the fastest releases in the NFL. So with all the weapons, teams can't really gameplay for that. So he's going to get the ball out faster. My second seed is the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have got really good. But I think they were kind of better last year because the Chiefs got rid of Dee Ford and Justin Houston, but they required Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark. They also lost Eric Berry, but with Tyrann Mathieu, I think it's better because Tyrann Mathieu is a lot younger and faster in his career. So the Chiefs, that's why I got the Chiefs there. They're just a strong unit. The coach, Andy Reid, like what Phil said. So my third seed, I got the Texans. I think the Texans are still better than the Ravens because I think they have a more trustable quarterback, let's say. You don't need a great defense in the AFC for a playoff spot. My 4th seed is the Ravens. Now with the Ravens, it's kind of by default type of thing because the Bengals aren't a factor again for the 3rd year in a row because they just can't get it going for a whole season. They're too inconsistent.
Well, plus at the end of Marvin Lewis's tenure there, they kind of had a whole little rebuild mode. They kept Andy Dalton around, but they lost basically the whole offensive line. And, AJ Green hasn't been healthy in 3 or 4 years. And the Bengals defense hasn't looked sharp in a while. It never really has looked sharp, especially in the postseason.
The Steelers are 0-2, and their quarterback is out for the season, so they're eliminated. The Browns, I think with the Browns that they're building up chemistry currently, and they have a really hard schedule, and I feel like when they get good, it'll be too late for them to do anything about it. So that's why I think they'll be 7-9,
They have a 6-game stretch of hell. They play the Rams, Ravens, Niners, Seahawks, Patriots, Broncos, and even the Bills in their 7th game. So I'd be surprised if they win one game out of that. Maybe one or two. But that's reaching right there. So I doubt they. The Ravens have this division locked down. Jabari, give me those wild card teams.
The wild card teams I have first with the 5th seed is the Chargers, because the Chargers have a lot of injuries right now, and Melvin Gordon's holding out. So I think they're going to start off slow because, as you could tell with the game against Detroit, what happened there, Phil?
A lot of mistakes, and you're going to see that with a lot of new players on the field filling in for the Stars.
So, yeah, when all those players are done and when they come back from injury, then the Chargers will hit full strength, especially Derwin James. My 6th seed is the Buffalo Bills, because the Buffalo Bills, the only reason why I have them is the fast start they had. They're 2-0 already, and both of the games were on the road. So, since both of the games were on the road, that means they have 8 home games. Now, I think in Orchard Park, they have good home field advantage. So they should be able to get it done for most of their home games. They have a strong defense led with Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde. So they have the pieces there. And why I don't think the Colts is because the Colts are in a very tough division. And Andrew Luck is not there anymore. So I just don't. I think Jacoby Brissett's good, but I don't think he has enough experience to carry the Colts. So I got the Bills for 6.
Can't say I agree with you, but great input. The Bills' defense looks legit, and Josh Allen looks solid at the quarterback position. I think if Frank Gore can stay healthy, that's a solid team to put in there at the 6th seed. I'm still going with the Colts, though, especially after they beat your Super Bowl pick, those Atlanta Falcons, Sunday. That was a solid game, and Marlon Mack and the offensive line looked legit. And Justin Houston, he looks back. He looks re-energized. So if he can keep taking it the way he's going, along with Jabal Sheard on that defensive front, those defensive and offensive fronts are going to be controlling the games for the Colts. So watch out for them. Now we're going to get into another segment that we like to call What the Fuck Did Eric Say? Now, here's how this one basically works. Eric sends in basically a statement, and this one is going to be an NFL statement. I'll give that much to you. And Eric's got a little bit of a speech slur, and it's all in good fun. Eric's totally up for this. We didn't have a gun to his head or anything. I'm gonna play this clip. He already sent it in to me. I'm gonna play this clip, and the first one to send me in word for word what the statement is will get $5 from me via Venmo. Okay, here comes the clip in 3, 2, 1, go.
Severe injuries associated with quarterback position can just to the NFL's viewership and revenue.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Thanks again, Eric. Everybody, that's our friend Eric Sandoval. We're going to put the link to his Instagram in our description. Now we want to get to one of our favorite segments, or it's going to be one of our favorite segments this year, the good, the bad, and the Dolphins. Normally we'd put the Browns in there, but they decided to have expectations this year, so we're going to use the Dolphins as our scapegoat this year. Here we go.
All right, so we're here with this segment we call the good, the bad, and the Dolphins. It was going to be called the ugly, but the Dolphins are going to be
They're
the definition of the ugly this year, because this Dolphins team might be the worst team I've ever seen in my life, because the players just all want to quit. But anyways, so the good to week 2 is the Ravens. Lamar Jackson and Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown is their key acquisition because he's showing very unrookie-like abilities, because he's helping Lamar Miller stretch the field, and Lamar Miller looks more comfortable in year 2 with the offense and the system. good. The Ravens just look like a good team, but what's unfortunate about the Ravens, though, I know I'm kind of contradicting myself because I said they look like a good team, but if only they kept figured out a way how to pay C.J. Mosley, because don't you think?
Oh, definitely, bro. I think C.J. Mosley was a beast. But at the same time, he kind of wanted the highest paid. He is the highest paid linebacker, I think, now. And I don't know if he's worth that, especially when you can get a lot of good linebackers on cheaper deals.
So Lamar Miller is just really looking strong, and I know they played against the Dolphins. Like, people are, the week 1 game. Like, I'm not too high up on that because it was against the Dolphins, and we'll talk about the Dolphins later. But
we'll get to them.
We'll get to the Dolphins. But the other good I have is the Falcons defense. Now, next week we'll be talking about our NFC playoff picture, but the Falcons defense is going to be the key reason to me why the Falcons will get it done this year.
They have a lot of injured players back.
Yeah, the Falcons have injured players back in Deion Jones and Ricardo Allen and
Neal.
Desmond Trufant and
Keanu Neal, right? That's
Keanu Neal injured his forearm. And their defense on Sunday Night Football against the Eagles, they played the scheme that I wanted them to play, the 3 safety roamer with Ricardo Allen, Keanu Neal in the box, and Devontae KZ from San Diego State. He led the league in interceptions last year with 7 picks. And they played like a roam defense that lets the players do like a Troy Polamalu type of thing, where like let them do what they think is comfortable, and they have one of the best coverage, I would say the best coverage linebacker in the NFL, and Deion Jones. If not him, then Kuechly. So they have get a really good defense, a really strong front with Grady Jarrett, Tack McKinley, and what's his name? The outside linebacker.
Vic Beasley?
So Vic Beasley last year had a bad season, a drop-off season compared to the year before when the Falcons were in the Super Bowl, because he led the league with 15 sacks that year, and he fell off. And I feel like the reason he fell off was because all those defensive players last year was missing. They were missing. So that's my good. My bad is the Panthers offense. A lot of people will blame Cam Newton, but the reason why I think it's not Cam Newton's fault entirely. Now, Cam Newton, he's the quarterback. He has a good reason to do with it, because on Thursday night he also missed a bunch of throws, a lot of throws, but I also think that he was rushed back into play because I don't think he's healthy, because it was 4th and 1 at the goal line, and they didn't do a quarterback sneak with the 6'5" quarterback. And even Tom Brady at the age of 42 still will do a quarterback sneak. So I think Cam Newton's banged up, but he's still missing throws. We're not going to have injuries as an excuse, but Cam Newton still gets pressured a lot. The organization haven't really helped Cam Newton as getting a number 1 receiver ever since Kelvin Benjamin. He's haven't had a number 1 receiver, and Greg Olson's getting older. Also, his only true weapon is Christian McCaffrey, but he's a running back, so Cam Newton is...
Honestly, I disagree. I think Cam Newton is the problem. Yeah, maybe they rushed him back too quickly. He doesn't look right out there. He's throwing it over freaking players' heads, and the guys are 6'3". So there's got to be a problem with them. But I think it is his fault. The offensive line isn't that bad. They have Christian McCaffrey, one of the best running backs in the league. You have DJ Moore at receiver. You got a couple other good guys. Greg Olsen looked good. He had 120 yards receiving, I think. So, they have a good team. But I watched the game, and it looked like Cam Newton was straight up just missing throws. And especially when you're losing to the Bucks. When Jameis Winston looks like the better quarterback in the game, I think you guys got a problem. So I wouldn't say it's their whole offense. I'd say it's Cam Newton. Even in Cam Newton's MVP season, his completion percentage hovered around 60%. he's always had around a 50-55% completion percentage, so he's never really been the most accurate quarterback. The thing that's kept him as a elite quarterback in this league is his legs along with his arm, and he hasn't really been able to do that, especially with his throwing shoulder being messed up. So I think they're going to really have to either look into another quarterback or really look into what's wrong with Cam before and see what they can do, because they're not looking good.
Stop you there, because like the Panthers have never had, in Cam Newton's career, have never had a number one wideout outside of Kelvin Benjamin. You're bringing up DJ Moore and them. These are all like speedsters. They're not even true. Like, give Cam Newton a Keenan Allen. Give Cam Newton a OBJ or a freak of nature where
he's missing wide open guys by like 2 feet above their heads.
Yeah, he is, but that's where I said where he's hurt. I don't think he's fully recovered. I think he got rushed back in.
Yeah, even fully recovered, he was never the most accurate. I do agree. I guess he's never had an elite receiver. Maybe the end of Steve Smith's career he did. But, yeah, you're right. But I think at this point, he is not what's best for this team.
So we're going to get into our the Dolphins side. Now the Dolphins. How do I start with the Dolphins?
Oh, man.
Oh, my.
Their
players don't even want to play for the team. Like, that's just tough. Their players, they're saying that some of them are requesting to get traded.
Mika Fitzpatrick did.
Mika Fitzpatrick just got traded to the Steelers.
Did he really?
Right now.
Really? Wow.
As we're speaking, he just got traded to the Steelers.
That's a trade.
I don't know what they traded for him, but the Steelers, if they still have Big Ben, then next year, then they'll probably, their defense will be finally rebuilt. And
yeah, anything they do this year is a wash, so might as well just bench him.
Yeah, the Dolphins, though, the Dolphins kind of did it to themselves. What do you say, Phil? Because they've had the players, they just traded all of them. Jarvis Landry, Ndamukong Suh, Jay Ajayi, like, they just got rid of all their players. Yeah. They had talent.
I like the Tunsil trade, 2 first-rounders when you got, he was 1 first-rounder. I think that's, good turnaround, especially when that's the thing. Yeah, they set him up for failure. Obviously, they didn't think they'd be the worst team in the league by real far. Like, they're looking like the Browns the last 10 years. But, I thought they did good with the Tunsil trade, and they're building towards the future. And they don't really have a quarterback or anybody to build behind yet. They don't really have a star player to build behind. So, they're shit, but there's nothing really they can do about it for the next couple of years, especially when Brady's still playing.
Yeah, so they're pretty much full sending the tank,
I'd say that.
They're tank season.
They're pressing the panic button. Players are trying to get the hell out of there.
And my other ugly is going to have to be the Bengals, because the Bengals, Andy Dalton is quote-unquote a Pro Bowl quarterback every year. His team doesn't really do damage in the playoff, because every time they go to playoffs they lose in the first round. But the past 2 years I don't think they made it, but before that, the past 3 years they made it, and they just lost in the first round every time.
Choke and more choke.
And the Bengals kind of have talent too. That's the thing that makes them ugly, because they kind of had the pieces to be something, but if you haven't even won a playoff game, then there's nothing to show for it.
Well, the Bengals basically went from a Super Bowl roster from choking playoff games to a playoff roster that chokes regular games.
Yeah.
It's basically where they're at. And they're not going to win the division. They're not doing shit. All right, so for my good, bad, and ugly, for the good, I have the San Francisco 49ers. I actually predicted them to win the division at the end of the season. It could go either way, but I definitely think they're getting a wild card spot. Jimmy Garoppolo looks like a beast. Week 1, he looked a little iffy, but this week he looked to settle down. They have a pretty good deep threat in Marquise Goodwin and George Kittle. Their defensive line is stacked. They have Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Dee Ford, and Solomon Thomas. That's crazy. And then they have Quan Alexander and Richard Sherman killing it in the secondary. Well, Quan Alexander's a linebacker, but that's a really solid team. And then you have Matt Breida at the running back spot, and then Tevin Coleman when he gets back. He's a little injured right now. They have a solid team. Definitely a playoff contender. My bad is going to be... Yeah, my bad's going to be injuries because we had especially Drew Brees and Big Ben this week. That's a killer, that basically your team's out of the playoffs. You're not competing. Your season's done, And all your offense that you're watching is going to be boring as shit because you got the second or third string quarterback throwing checkdowns the whole time and screens. So, goodbye to your season, Saints fans, and especially Steelers fans. We heard Drew Brees might be back. Teddy Bridgewater is actually a pretty good backup, so I don't want to get there too quick. He could play pretty well.
Say goodbye, Saints.
But yeah, it's not looking too good for them. And then we had Joe Staley on the 49ers left tackle. He broke his leg. It's a fracture, I think. He should be back. And then we had Hunter Henry again on the Chargers. He fractured his knee. He should be back as well. That's just keep adding to the list for them. Another one for the bad spectrum would be Adam Vinatieri. He missed a couple extra points and field goals week 1. He also did week 2. And he's 46-year-old kicker. I think he's the oldest player in the league. No, he's definitely the oldest player in the league. And I think he's a kick or two away from being out of the league at this point. He's got too good of a career to be kicking like crap his last year. You want to end on a good one. So I think he might retire. My ugly/Dolphins for the week is obviously the Miami Dolphins. They've been outscored 102-10 the first 2 weeks of the season. That's just plain embarrassing for an NFL team. You guys gotta be able to produce some type of offense, especially Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's been known to throw for 300 yards a game on average. Obviously he's throwing his picks, but this dude, man, they can't even get checkdowns going. And Kenyon Drake is a really talented running back, but they can't even get him going at all. That team's just straight trash, and everything's going to be downhill from here. Our only hope for somebody dethroning the Patriots looks like it's the Bills, and that doesn't look too great. So good luck, NFL fans. And my last ugly for the night's probably got to be Trevor Siemian's injury on Monday Night Football. They had Myles Garrett. He had a hell of a night on him. He sacked him as he threw the ball away, and it looked like both of them landed on his ankle really awkwardly. I thought for sure it was broken. ESPN even cut straight to a commercial break, but they ended up showing him walking, limping after the game. I guess we'll find out soon whether or not it's actually broken, but man, it looked like a bad break. I wouldn't want to see that one again.